Okay, it's on YouTube. Sure.
Hello.
Hi, Philip. How are you?
Baruch Hashem. Have been better. I'm okay.
Hey.
It's okay.
From this morning till now.
Yeah, that's a long time from this morning till now, Saul. You know how long it takes to get run over by a car?
I don't want to think about that.
Has v'shalom. Has v'shalom.
You know what? With everything going on in our world, you almost feel like that's the least.
Yeah, but you could do it the other way too. You could say, you know how long it takes to learn a chapter of Tehillim. You could learn since this morning. We could have learned 10 chapters of Tehillim.
I don't know about that.
Alavai, I did that.
The truth is, the truth is that a big chunk since we talked this morning, I was preparing today's class. So the truth is not so true.
This is so far the nicest kapitel, I think. Anyways, it's the most poetic kapitel, the most beautiful kapitel that I've read, and we read this in shul every Shabbos.
Yep.
Right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful kapitel. It's very poetic.
Yeah.
I started reading it and I go, wait, this sounds familiar.
Yeah. No, it's nice to come across a kapitel that you actually recognize, right? Yeah. No, for sure. I was going to mention it. Absolutely. It's we say it right away at the beginning. It's right away at the beginning, Shabbos morning davening. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to mute everybody. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to unmute yourself. Welcome to chapter 19, Kapitel Yutes. As was just mentioned, this is a kapitel that's said in shul every single Shabbos, but that's not the only verse. The only thing that you should recognize about this kapitel, the last verse of this kapitel, you say in Shemona Esrei 3 times a day. This Yiv L'Ratzon Imrefi, the last verse of this kapitel, and we'll talk about that because actually we already talked about it in the Talmud class in Gemara Brachas, page 9, Daf Tes. We already talked about this verse and why it said in Shemona Esrei and why it said where it said in Shemona Esrei, but we'll get to that. We have time to get to the last verse. We have a lot to do before we get to the last verse. Baruch Hashem, it's not as long as last week's chapter, but it's plenty long. Next week we go to a shorter one. Next week's chapter 20, is also a very common chapter, a very famous chapter, and it's a chapter that we say very often. But that we'll get to chapter 20. We'll talk a lot about it next week. It's also in davening, not only on Shabbos. It's actually in davening every single Shachris. We say it. Actually, right, as Yosef Yitzchak just tells me, Dafke do not say it on Shabbos. And therefore, the Chabad custom is that right after davening we say chapter 20 from Tehillim because we didn't say it in davening. But that's for next week. We have time till then, a lot to prepare till then. So, welcome to chapter 19. This chapter, as we usually give a little bit of a recap in the beginning of what to expect in this chapter. So the comment over here is, to behold God's might, one should look to the heavens, to the sun, and to the Torah, from which awesome miracles and wonders can be perceived. Wonders that lead to creations to tell of God's glory. That's in a nutshell. The truth is, in a very nice nutshell, the whole chapter is meant in that, is said in that. Okay, we're going to go through like we usually do with translating verse by verse, and then we're going to go through it again with more commentary. So, Lam Natseach Mizmer LeDavid, to the conductor, to the Menatseach, to the conductor, a song by David. Hashamayim misaprim kevoid kel. The heavens, they misaprim, from the word sipur, they say a story of Hashem's glory. Umase yadav, and Hashem's creations, the handiwork of his hand, his creation. Magid horakia, the sky proclaims. Yoim liyoim yabia oimer. Day to day, they express oimer, they express with saying. V'layla lilayla, and night to night. Yechave das, they convey das, which is knowledge. Ein oimer vein dvarim. They say it without oimer, without saying any words, without oimer is like to speak, without speaking. Vein dvarim, and there are no words. Bli nishma koilam, and it's without even hearing their voice. All these things that he just mentioned about shamayim and talking about Hashem's glory, it's ein oimer vein dvarim. It's without words. The Chala Aretz Yotza Kavam. It extends across the whole land. It goes all the way to the other side, to the Kotze, all the way to the other end. La Shemesh, so like starting on one side of the world, going to the other side of the world. La Shemesh, some oil bohem, and for the sun, he made a tent for it. And it is like a chasan, a groom, yaitze michupasai, that goes out of his chuppah, of his wedding canopy. Yasis kegibar loretz eirach. It is also compared to a strong man, a gibar, that is loretz eirach, ready to run a course. It is found starting from one end of the heavens, uskufasai al ketzaisam, and encompasses all the way to the other end. And nothing is hidden from its heat. From its chama means, it could mean the sun itself, but over here it's the word chom, the idea of heat. Mechamasei, from its heat, from the heat of the sun. Teiras Hashem tamima. The Torah of Hashem is tamim, is perfect. Meshivas nafesh, it restores your soul. Eidus Hashem ne'emana. The testimony of Hashem is trustworthy. Machkim aspesi, it even makes a fool wise. Pikudei Hashem yesharim. The pikudim, the precepts, the mitzvahs of Hashem are straight, are just. Mesamchei leiv, they gladden the heart, they rejoice the heart, they make the heart happy. Mitzvahs Hashem, the command of Hashem, bara, is clear, and me'iras einayim enlightens the eyes. Yiras Hashem, the fear of Hashem, tahira, is pure. Oimedes load, stands forever, is there forever. Mishpetei Hashem, the judgment of Hashem, emes, is true. Tzadku yachtav, is righteous. All these things, yachtav, together, are the same together, meaning it's not different. Hanechamadim mizahav umipazrav, it is more desirable, it is more geschmack than gold. And paz is also gold, fine gold, much fine gold, rav, a lot. Umisukim, and it is sweeter, midvash, from honey, v'noifes tzufim, and honeycombs. Gam avdecha nizar behem, your servant, your eved, your slave, your Hashem, your servant, and David Melech is talking about himself. Nizar behem is very careful about them, b'shamram, watching over them, ekev rav, for the abundance. Shkiyois miyavin, who can understand shkiyois, shaygeg, inadvertent wrongdoings? Ministareis nakeni, cleanse me from the hidden sins that I don't even know about. Nistareis means they're hidden even from me. Gam mizeidim chasei chavdecha, also protect me, your servant, from zaydim. So zaydim, we'll get into what zaydim is talking about. There's two opinions what zaydim is. Protect me from this. Al yim shuluvi, they shouldn't have any control over me. Uz asam, then I will be asam, I will be unblemished. V'nikesi mipesharav, and I will be clean from great iniquity, from great sin. Yiyu l'ratzin, may it be in your will that imrei fi, the words of my mouth, v'hegyen libi, and the meditation of my heart, which are lifonecha, in front of you, Hashem. Hashem tzuri v'goyali, Hashem tzuri, my rock, and goyali, my redeemer. So the truth is, this kapitel doesn't even need so much more. There is so much more, and it makes it so much more beautiful, etc. But the kapitel itself already is so powerful and so amazing. But we're going to go through it again on the second run, together with some commentary. So, as an introduction, we mentioned before, we can look at different creations. We could look at Shamayim V'aretz, we could look at the heavens, and we could look at the expansiveness of the heavens, or even expansive. It doesn't mention other things, but he mentioned Shamayim. mentions the heavens, but you could look at the expansiveness of earth. You go into a desert and you see expansiveness. And you could be fascinated. You could look at the creations of Hashem, Maseh Yodov, the handiwork of God, the creations of Hashem. And you could be fascinated. You could be wowed. You could be awed. And this is the word that we're looking for, the word awe. Then there is also the idea of looking into Hashem's Torah. And you could also be fascinated, wowed, and awed. And you'll also see Hashem's glory. The kavod Hashem, you could see in both of these things. Question is, and different commentaries say that the kapitel is saying that one is greater than the other, that Torah is greater than the other. And some commentaries say that he's bringing them as equal levels, Shemayim and Torah. But the different commentaries when it comes to that. But it is a fascinating thing, and the truth is, as you learn Torah, so Shemayim, to a certain degree, we could understand, especially today that we have some understandings. We're not a Pesi, right? So we're not the level of a fool, so we can understand a little bit. And we look at Shemayim, we look at the heavens, we look at expansiveness, and unless you have ulterior motives, you'll recognize that there's a God, that Hashem runs the world, that there is something unbelievable at work over here. The same thing is with the study of Torah. You open up a sefer, you open up something to learn Torah, and you see the depths of it, and that there is, just like the expansiveness of heavens, the expansiveness of Torah. You open up a sefer, and it doesn't end there. You learn something else. There's always something more to learn. So it kind of brings up the same ideas and the same concept. And these are the two sides that David HaMelech is juggling here in this chapter. And as we mentioned before, this chapter should look very familiar to you. It is said every Shabbos in Shachris. It means, if you recognize this chapter, it means that you're in shul relatively early Shabbos morning, because it's relatively early. It's said early in the beginning of Shachris. And also, the final pasuk should be very familiar, because that pasuk we say 3 times a day at the end of Shemona Esrei. 6 times a day? With the Chazar Shvat? Oh, it's before, right? Okay, yeah. Chana says 6 times, right? Because it said twice in the Shemona Esrei. So this it should be very familiar, and as we see in Gemara Brachos, it discusses the position of that pasuk. The position of the pasuk is why that pasuk is said in Shemona Esrei at the end of Shemona Esrei. I don't know if you remember when we learned this. It's a long time ago, because it's all the way in the beginning of Gemara Brachos. But the Gemara discusses why this verse, which, as we just translated, that that Hashem should take my prayer and should be something worthy in front of Him. Why the Gemara over there asks, why is it something that is said at the end of Shemona Esrei? We should maybe open Shemona Esrei with it. The Gemara gives an answer there, which we'll talk about at the end of today's class. Okay, so let's go through it again. Chapter 19, verse number 1. Lam Natseach Mizmor David, the conductor, sung by David. Pasuk number 2. Hashamayim misaprim kaved kel. How does the Shamayim, the heavens, how do they recount Hashem's kavod, Hashem's glory? How does that happen? So the next psukim will tell us, and that's the process over here. That the psukim are going to explain this as it goes along. That's the way most commentaries explain it. There's some other commentaries say that Hashemayim misaprim kaved kel, that Hashem, that the heavens, by doing what it needs to do, meaning that there's rain, and the rain gives water to the crops, and the crops bear fruit, etc., etc., etc. All that happens through the Shamayim doing its part. What does it do? It recounts Hashem's glory. It shows to us Hashem's glory, and we recognize through that there is a God that runs the world, and that is their version of praising Hashem. The Medrash brings a mashal over here and says, someone walks into a house in the middle of nowhere, and he sees the table is bare, the table is empty. He leaves, he comes back an hour later, and he sees the table is set and full, and there's food, and there's a place to sit, etc., etc. What's the conclusion that he comes to? Yesh balabais lebirazu, that there is an owner here. There's someone that takes care of things over here, right? That's the natural reaction to seeing that that when you left and you came back and all of a sudden something changed. Someone is doing that. And the same thing is with this world, that when there is a rain and a rain grows, it falls on the crops and therefore something grows. That shows that the Yesh Balabayis, that there's someone that runs the world. And that is what the Medrash says he means by Hashamayim Misapim Kved Kel, by the Shamayim doing its part of the rain, etc., rain, the sun, etc. So then we recognize that there is a God. Pasuk Gimel, pasuk number 3. So Yom L'Yom Yabiya Omer. So Rashi says that this idea that from day to day, Yabiya Omer, it says, the Laila, it gives das, it gives understanding, it gives knowledge. So Rashi over here says that this brings out the idea about the world being recreated every single day. Yom L'Yom. There's no guarantee that there's going to be tomorrow that there's going to be the sun should rise tomorrow. There's no guarantee. We take it for granted, but there's no guarantee. We say in davening every day, Hashem recreates the world every day. Out of the goodness of his heart, so to speak, Hashem recreates the world. And that is what he's saying over here, Yom L'Yom, that day to day, we shouldn't take it for granted. Every single day is unique. Single day is special. And by doing that, the Malbim continues on this explanation. By doing that, by recreating the world every single day, Yom L'Yom, so that we know that everything that happens, if the fact that the world is recreated every moment and every single day, Hashem recreates the world in order for it to exist, so we know that every single detail that goes on here in this world is because Hashem wants it to be that way. And that's what we call Hashgacha Pratis, divine personal providence. And that's what this pasuk is trying to bring out, that Hashem runs the world and that Hashem literally is involved with every single detail, every single thing that happens here in this world. And that's the Yom L'Yom Yabiya Omer, day to day, Laila Laila, everything that happens because Hashem wants it to happen. Pasuk number 4, when Hashamayim, when the heavens talk about Hashem's glory, they do it with Ein Omer Vein Dvarim. B'li Nishma Kailam. They say it without saying any words, without even hearing their voice. Right? So this is the idea of them praising Hashem even without words. We need to use words in order to praise Hashem. Human beings, we have a voice and we use that in order to praise Hashem. Even though we mention later in the last verse, we say V'hegi and Libi, that we reference the meditations of our hearts, because even that Hashem hears, but the Shamayim definitely comes without the voice. Even without a sound, they could also recount Hashem's glory. Pasuk Hey, pasuk number 5. That this line, and the line, if I understand correctly, this line is referring to the rays of the sun. That the rays of the sun goes b'chala aretz, and it goes from one end to the other end of it. And that the sun, la shemesh, some oil b'hem, the sun is in some sort of oil, some sort of tent. So what's the pasuk telling us? So first of all, the idea that it mentions the sun, the Radak over here comes and explains, it's mentioning the sun because the sun is the most powerful thing that we see, right? To mention the stars or the moon, it's not as powerful as the sun. So therefore, the pasuk over here talks about the sun because of its greatness, its size, its warmth, its impact, etc., etc. And this is so it's referring to the lines, the rays of the sun, and even those who live very far away. Pasuk number 5 saying that the sun reaches from one side to the other. Even if someone lives very far away, the sun reaches to them. And that goes straight into pasuk number 6, that when the sun comes up, when the sun rises in the morning, is similar to a chassan, to a groom coming out of the chuppah. What's the idea over here? So different commentaries explain this in slightly different ways, but all from the same point. The Radak says that just like people are excited to see the chassan, just like people are excited to see the groom right after the chuppah, right after the wedding canopy, right after the ceremony, so too people are excited to see the sun. V'hu kechasam. The sun is like a chasam that comes out every day. People are happy again, once again, excited to see the sun rise again. This is the way that Radak explains, but the Radak also says that he heard an explanation in the name of his father, or he heard it maybe from his father, that just like a chassan, a groom, after the chuppah, so he might go for a little bit for pictures and then to the wedding hall, etc. But what does he want? He wants to be done with the wedding already and go back to the kala. He wants to be done with the wedding and go back home. Enough already, right? The chassan, yes, it's beautiful to have a nice wedding party, etc. But he wants to go back to the kala. He wants to go back to the bride. That's where he wants to go. So the same thing he says. The Radak's father explains that it's similar to a chassan, a groom. The son is similar to a groom, that all he wants to do is go back to the kala, to the bride. The sun also only wants to go back to its source. Yes, it's doing its job, it's shining and doing its job. Hashem wants it to shine and to give warmth to the people, and he wants it to give rays of sun to the plants that they should grow, etc., etc. It's got its job. But what does it really want? It wants to go back to its source, it wants to be connected to Hashem. So that's the way the Radak's father explains it. Others explain it that just like the chasam comes out with tremendous simcha, comes out with tremendous joy, so even the sun is joyful to do its part in Hashem's grand plan. So also over here it talks about the sun being in a tent. The idea of being in a tent is that it's covered over. If the sun was at its full strength, we wouldn't be able to exist, right? What do they call it? The ozone layers. There's layers that block the sun in order that it shouldn't be too strong to literally burn us up. If we were a little closer to the sun, or if those ozone layers didn't exist, we would burn. If we were a little bit further from the sun, we would not exist because it would be too cold. The fact that the distance between the sun and the earth is such a perfect distance, only Hashem could have created something like that. But that's on the side note. That's a side commentary. But it refers to the sun enclosed in an oil, in a tent. A chassan, a groom, he marries his wife, he marries the bride under a wedding canopy. And that's what, like, the ultimate, that's the highest level. That's like the most spirituality, that's the most love, that's the highest level. And then he goes out from there in order to celebrate with other people. So that's other commentaries say that going out from the wedding canopy, going out from the chuppah, that is similar to the sun being covered, because it's not the same strength that he is under the chuppah as he is after he comes out from under the chuppah. So that's the end of pasuk number 6. Yasis kegibar lo retzairach, that it's like a strong man that's ready to run a marathon or something like that. Radak says that it's talking about a strong man that's ready to go out to war, so a warrior. So he's excited, he's happy. Now it's his time. This is what he was trained for. This is what he's ready for. So the same thing is the sun. This is what it's trained for. This is what it knows best how to do. This is it. So it's happy that right now I'm going to come and rise, and that's what it's referring to. Pasuk number 7. That the sun goes it goes from one side to the other. So different commentaries that say that it's either talking about the sun going from one side to the other every day, right? Going from the rising in the east, setting in the west every single day, and that's what it's referring to. Rashi says, though, that it's referring to the cycle of the sun, which is a yearly cycle, the 365 and a quarter days that it's referring to. So there's different commentaries of what it's talking about the sun making its cycle, whether it's the daily cycle that the sun does or the yearly cycle that the sun does. The end of the pasuk says, "Ve'in nistar mechamasai," and nobody can hide from its warmth. Mechamasai, from its warmth. So the Radak over here says that the heat of the sun you can't hide from. Right? You may be able to hide from the light of the sun. You could go into a house, you could close the windows, and the sunlight might not come in. But the heat of the sun, you can't hide from. That's what he's referring to. The sun penetrates everybody everywhere. Everybody gets the warmth. Everybody gets warmth from the sun, and that's the uniqueness of the sun, that it penetrates and it goes everywhere. There's nowhere that it doesn't go. Pasuk Ches, now that we finished, and this is the way that Ramban explains this pasuk, Nachmanides explains this pasuk, that now that we finished talking about physical actions, the mitzvahs, etc., it talked about the praising of Hashem and things like that. Now, and the praise that comes from the heavens towards Hashem. So he talks about the uniqueness and the merit of the study of Torah. And according to Nachmanides, it's a greater praise of Hashem. The Torah is a greater praise of Hashem. There's other commentaries that say that he's saying they're of equal, just like the sun and the heavens praise Hashem, so too, and they're expansive, etc. So too, Torah also does that. So different ways to learn these psukim. But the way Nachmanides says that the sun, what does the sun do? The sun proves that there is a God. If not for Hashem, the world wouldn't exist. So this is the idea of proving that there is a God. But the Torah, as he's going to mention over here, it's not about proof. It is about restoring your soul. So it's a whole different level. It's a whole different category of restoring your soul. And as we're going to mention, it even makes the fool a little wiser. The Pesi that he refers to, the fool, he might not understand in the expansiveness of the sun, of the galaxies, or the expansiveness of the earth. But Torah could make him smart. He can understand Torah, and that he could see the expansiveness. So that's what he's referring to. That's according to Nachmanides. Let's see the pasuk. So Hashem's Torah's Hashem Tamima is whole. Shivas Nefesh restores the soul, and Eidus Hashem. So this Eidus that it gives testimony that Hashem is Ne'emana, trustworthy, and Machkimas Pasi through the study of Torah. It makes everybody wiser. The Rabbeinu Bachaya and Radak over here say that the difference between the earlier psukim and now the psukim that talk about the study of Torah is that the earlier psukim talk about the sun, like for example the sun. And the sun, if you have too much of sun, you get heat stroke, right? The sun, it's amazing and it's very powerful and it's very much needed. We need the sun. But if you have too much, it could be bad for you. But the Torah, you can never say you have too much Torah. You can never say, and Torah can never be bad for you. Study of Torah, learning Torah can never be bad for you. On the contrary, it can only do great things for you. So that's why Rabbeinu Bachai and the Radak say that Torah, that's why he starts off with the sun, talks about the sun, but then he goes into Torah because it's the next level up. It's better. He brings down in davening, the bracha before there's a bracha not right before Shema. The bracha before Shema, the one two paragraphs before Shema, ends off with Baruch Atah Hashem Yoitzer Hama'iris. Blessed are you, God, who has created Yoitzer, created the Ma'ar, the light source, which is referring to the sun. Maybe it's referring to the sun and moon before the moon was demoted. Yoitzer Hama'iris, right? And then right away in the next paragraph, at least in Chabad, when we daven, so we sing that, Baruch Atah Hashem Yoitzer Hama'iris, then we start Avas Eilam, and then we sing something else. What do we sing? We ask Hashem for a blessing in the study of Torah. And that's why we say V'hareinenu in davening, connected to the idea of the creation of the sun. Because it's connected to, because of this kapitel, they're connected one to the other. The Al-Shich over here comes and says that the pasuk says that Torah Hashem Tamima Meshivas Nafesh, that the Torah of Hashem is Tamim and it restores the soul. What does it mean to restore the soul? The Al-Shich over here explains that it restores the soul. It connects it with its original source. We know that our neshama, our soul, is a part of God, comes from Hashem. It's literally a piece of the Eibishter that's infused in us in order to give us a life force. And by study of Torah, what are we doing? We're connecting our neshama back to its original source, which learning Hashem's Torah, so we're connecting with Hashem. And that's what the way the Alshech learns this pasuk. Pasuk number 9. Pikudei Hashem Yisharim. So Pikudei is talking about the mitzvahs of Hashem. But Pikudim are the same idea as Chukim. They're the level of mitzvahs that are a chayk, that we don't necessarily understand. A pikud is a command. And a command, it's like when a general in an army gives a command. It doesn't give you an explanation why. And maybe afterwards he'll tell you. Maybe, but in the command, no, you got to do it. You can't ask questions. You can't try to understand it. And that's similar to a chayk. We do a chayk. This is what Hashem wants. Yeah, it would be beautiful if we try to understand it, etc. on our own time. At another time, we could try to understand what's behind the para aduma, and there's some beautiful explanations. But the reason why we do it is because it's a chayk, and that's the way Hashem wants it. So that's the idea over here, that pikudei Hashem yisharim, that the ways of Hashem, the chayk, are straight. And not only that, the deeper the idea, a chayk is a deep idea that we don't necessarily understand. The chayk, do not kill, a mishpat, a mitzvah to do, but it's understandable. It's a shallow mitzvah. Why? There's no depths to it. Of course, do not kill. Yeah, we understand it. You don't need to go on and explain it. A chayk has so many levels of explanations that we can't get to. And the deeper you get in an understanding of a subject, right, the more excited you get. When you look at something and it doesn't make sense, but then you sit and you study it and you get to the depths of it, and all of a sudden you have a little inkling of some understanding in it. And as you grow in the understanding, the more excited you get when you understand it. And that's Pikudei Hashem Yisharim. The Pikudim, the mitzvahs of Hashem, the chukim of God are Yisharim, are straight, and Mesamchei Leiv. They gladden your heart. They bring joy to your heart, because when you understand them, when you do them, you understand them. They bring joy to your heart. That's one way to learn the pasuk. There's another way, very, very important way to learn this pasuk. Very, extremely important, and something that we focus on a lot in Chabad. Pikudei Hashem Yisharim, the mitzvahs of Hashem, are only going to be Yisharim, are only going to be straight, are only going to be right, are only going to be done in its fullest and most proper way if it is Mesamchei Leiv, if it brings joy to your heart. If you do a mitzvah and it doesn't bring joy to your heart, you did not do the mitzvah properly. If you do a mitzvah begrudgingly, no, you still did the mitzvah. You can't take that away. If you did a mitzvah, you put on tefillin, and you were sad about putting on the tefillin, you were I'm doing it because, I don't know, someone's standing over my head and forcing me to do it, and I'm not happy to do it. So you did the mitzvah, you can't take that away, but it's not Pikudei Hashem Yisharim. It's not the most yashar way to do it. The most yashar way to do a mitzvah is Mesamchei Leiv. You have to do a mitzvah with joy. You have to serve Hashem with joy. Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha, we know. And it's one of the main focuses of Chabad in general, the focus that the Rebbe had also with his mitzvah campaigns and with sending shluchim around the world, is ultimately to teach people how to do a mitzvah with joy. Chassidim are known to be joyful, and to do a mitzvah in a depressing mode, in a sad way, etc. That's not a good way to do a mitzvah. The most important way to do a mitzvah, as the pasuk over here tells us, Pikudei Hashem Yisharim, to have a yashar mitzvah, is to do it with Mesamchei Leiv, to do it with joy. And something that we could definitely take a personal lesson from this kapitel so far is to make sure that when we do a mitzvah, we should do it with proper joy. Very important to do mitzvahs with joy. Also, over here, the pasuk over here tells us, the sages tell us, it's brought down in Mamlois, that the sages say that when someone studies Torah, the pasuk is telling us that Mesamchei Leiv, when you do a mitzvah, when you study Torah, but specifically study of Torah, it gladdens the heart. It takes away all your negative thoughts. A person can have negative thoughts, and it was just, David, we were just speaking that we could go through some times times that we're in now, and it can be very depressing if you're thinking about what's going on out there in the world, or the opportunities that I might be missing out on, or the opportunities that I usually have, whether it's seeing the kids, etc. Right? There's a lot of things that we don't have the opportunity to do, and thinking about them makes us sad. But if you study Torah, it takes your mind off of it. This pasuk says this. The pasuk says, "Mesamche lev." It brings joy to the heart. It takes your mind off of that, and it brings joy to your heart. So it's funny that I said as soon as I saw it in Imam Lei's, reminded me of our conversation the other day, and it's definitely true. The study of Torah definitely brings joy to your heart, and when someone is going through a rough time, he should study Torah, and when you study Torah, it takes your mind off of other things, and also expands your mind to think about the proper things, think about things in the proper way. Pasuk Yud, Pasuk 10, Yiras Hashem Ta'ira. So we're talking about over here of pure awe. Yiras Hashem but Ta'ira, a pure type of awe. What's the pure type of awe that we're talking about? So the Radak comes and says that someone that's afraid to do an Aveda, even when he's alone. It's one thing that you're not going to do a sin because someone's seeing you, someone will see you. My father is watching, so therefore I'm careful not to do it in the wrong way. Or I'm in a crowd, I'm going to be careful. But when you're in your own room and nobody's watching and nobody will know, and then you have awe of Hashem, then you have Yiras Hashem. That's Tahira. That is a pure type of Yira. That is the type of Yira that he's talking about over here. That's the pure awe that he's referring to over here. And the Al-Sheikh over here says that if you have Yiras Hashem Ta'ira, if you have pure awe of Hashem, meaning not just when people are watching, but even when you know the only one that's watching is Hashem, so then Imedes La'ad, your Torah learning will stay forever, will stand forever, will be there forever. Dubner Magid uses this pasuk to explain, based on what the Radak said. He says that if your fear is based on something, remember once speaking to somebody, he says, well, I have to do this mitzvah because if I don't do this mitzvah, I think I'm going to be struck by lightning. He didn't even mean it 100%. He was half joking, but in every half joke, there's some truth, right? The fear of doing of not doing a mitzvah or doing a sin, and if that fear is based on something, that's not the right way to do it. First of all, because if that thing, the fear of that thing goes away, so then all of a sudden you're not doing Torah mitzvahs, right? But even more than that, it has to be pure. Our relationship with Hashem has got to be pure. Just like when it comes to love, when it comes to love of a spouse, when it comes to love in general, when we talk about the idea of love, if it's based on something, with famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, if it's based on something, betelo davar, betelo ava, when the thing disappears, the love disappears. So when it comes to awe of Hashem, also it can't be limited to something specific, that I am in awe of Hashem because of this. It has to be on its own merit, just because Hashem, just because. And he talks about this idea of Yiras Haraimamus, the awe of the expansiveness of God, and that is just the awe of Hashem, and that will stand forever. Pasuk 11. The Torah is so dear that it is more desirable than gold. He has gold and fine gold, and it's even sweeter than honey or honeycomb, etc. That's the pasuk. So first of all, why is it better than gold? Who says Torah is better than gold? Maybe gold is better. So the obvious answer is, and the Radak brings it down, is that Torah lasts forever. Torah is there even after 120. That gold and money, whatever, it can buy you what you need, but after you pass away, you can't get buried with it, right? Or you could get buried with it, but it won't stand you any good. But this Torah study that you do and the mitzvahs that you do stand with you even after 120. So automatically you see that their value, it outlasts gold and sweet things. Also, money could be stolen. Torah learning can't be stolen. If you share your money, you have a little bit less, which is not saying that's a bad thing. But if I have $100 in my pocket and I give you 50, I only have 50 now. But what if I have an understanding of Kapitel Yud Tes of Tehillim and I share it with you? We both have a better understanding of the Kapitel Tehillim. It adds by both. That's the beauty of Torah. That's the beauty of something of seichel, something of learning. And that's the idea over here that he's saying, that it's hanech madim, it's more valuable than anything physical, because when you have something physical, you've got to watch it. And if you don't watch it, it could disappear. Torah it has the other effect on you. The famous story in the Gemara of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi gets a gift from a king. The king's name was Artvan. And he gets this gift. This gift was a nice pearl. And the king, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, was a very wealthy sage, and asked for a gift in return. What did Rabbi Yehuda Anasi send in return? The Gemara says, sent a mezuzah. Can you imagine? The king sends such a beautiful gift, a pearl, a diamond, and he sends back a piece of parchment with some letters on it. And the king is all upset. So what are you sending me? What's the story over here? So, I sent you something of extreme value, and you sent me something that's worth 10 cents. What are you doing over here? So what does Rebbe answer? Rebbe answers a very powerful statement. You sent me something of value, and now I have to watch over it. I sent you something that will watch over you. As we know, a mezuzah is there to watch over us. And that's what I sent you. And that is of infinite value. You can't put a value to that. And that's the way Rebbe answered him. So that's the idea over here that the pasuk is saying, that there's value in gold. Of course, there's value in gold, but there's value beyond gold. Gold, if you have gold, you gotta watch it. You gotta put it in a safe. You gotta put it in a safety deposit box. You have to be careful, and you could lose it. And if you share it, you have less. Torah, on the other hand, when you share it, on the contrary, you have more. And Torah Mishamarte, Torah watches over him, as we've been learning over the last few weeks, also in Pirkei Avos, about the idea of Torah being a protection over a person. There's a story in the Zohar, that Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi comes to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and he tells Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai that I want to study Torah in order to become wealthy. That's what he tells him. So Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, sure, go study Torah. Anyways, a little while later, it says that he comes to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Yehuda ben Pazi comes to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and he says, no, where's my wealth? I'm studying already Torah, and I didn't get any wealthier. So he got all upset at him. He wanted to punish him, it says over there in the Zohar. And all of a sudden, a heavenly voice comes and says, don't punish him. Ultimately, he's going to be a big sage. Be careful, don't punish him. He's going to be a big sage. So he doesn't, and he tells him, okay, continue studying. I'll take care of it. A little bit later, there was someone that comes and he got a big inheritance. It says in the Zohar, he got 13 gold goblets. And he got 13 gold goblets. So he wanted to give, we talk about Meiser. So he wanted to give one of the gold goblets as a gift to a Talmid Chacham, to a Torah sage. So he came to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and he said, who should I give this cup to? Here, take it. I want to give it to a Talmid Chacham. I want to give it to a Torah scholar. Here, take it. So Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, now I'll give this gold goblet to Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi, because he wanted to become wealthy from study of Torah, and because of that baskel, the heavenly voice. So I'm going to give it to him. So he gives it to Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi. A little while later, he comes, he sees Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi crying. And he asks him, why are you crying? He says, I want you to take back the cup. I want you to take back the goblet, because I don't want my reward for the study of Torah to be in material wealth. I want it to be in the world to come, in Olam Haba. Finally got it, right? He got it. And he ended up being, and then they called him Ben Pazi. That's the way the Zohar ends off. Ben Pazi, from the word in our pasuk, Umi Paz. Paz means fine gold, right? So they started calling it Ben Pazi, and they're becoming a big sage. So that is the idea that Torah, as we like to say, as Mickey and Philip like to say, Torah is the best Eschera, right? And that's the idea of this pasuk, that Torah is even better than the gold, the fine gold, and sweeter than honey. Pasuk 12. So now we finished talking about the milas and the greatness of Torah study. Now he talks about himself. First of all, he refers to himself as Avdecha. He refers to himself as Hashem's servant, the king of the Jewish people, David HaMelech. Think about it for a second. He says, Hashem, Gam Avdecha, even your servant, me, the little me, as the Mefarshim explained, that he's trying to say that I don't make it into the study halls as the big Talmidei Chachamim, but I'm trying to be careful. Nizar behem, I try to be careful. I try to be very careful, B'Shamram, in order to watch over. Careful because, and Rashi says, I'm careful because of the reward that will come later, and the reward that will come in Olam Haba. And he continues and he says in Pasuk 13, Shkiyos miyavin. Who can understand? You make a mistake. Who can understand the mistakes? You know, sometimes we make mistakes. Miyavin, they happen. Who can understand them? And then there's another level. Some commentaries say that it's the same thing, but I think there's something separate. Ministaris nakeni. And then there's there's the sins that I don't even know about. You know, sometimes we do something we don't even realize that we did it. It's not our fault. Sometimes something happens, and we didn't even notice that it happened. You know, Shabbos, you could do something, you don't realize that it was Shabbos, or you don't realize what you did, or you missed an opportunity, and you didn't even realize that you missed that opportunity. So there's two levels over here. There's, first of all, the ones that I recognize. I made a mistake. You know, sometimes you do something wrong, but you realize that you made a mistake, and when you realize that you made a mistake, what could you do? So the Mefarshim say, when you realize you made a mistake, I could bring a carbon. So he's not asking Hashem to wipe it away, saying, Mi oven, who could understand them? But at least I could take care of them. Shkiyos, I made a mistake, a shoygeg. I don't understand, we don't understand, but at least I could fix it. I could do tshuva. But ministares, but the things that I didn't even know. So I'm asking you, Hashem, Nakeni, please wipe them off, wipe them clean for me. Please clear them for me. That these sins that I don't even know that happened. You should cleanse them for me. Yeah.
3 levels, not 2 levels. The first level of sin is who can discern errors. I was stupid. I didn't know. It's out of ignorance. The second one is it's nistaros. It's not the same as I didn't know out of ignorance. It's
I didn't even know. I didn't even know that it happened.
Nobody even knows. Some sins are hidden sins. And the third one is the willful sin. Like we say on Yom Kippur, don't we talk about 3 types of sin on Yom Kippur?
Right. No, so he doesn't even bring that up. Yeah.
He doesn't, but there are 3 types of sin.
Of course.
Bishkaga.
So Mazid, Shaygeg.
And Chet.
Yeah.
I think it's those 3.
Well, and it's like Nistaris are not really are Shaygeg. They go into the category of Shaygeg, but here it's he's asking in the form of doing tshuva. So
I understand, but I was just thinking that he's describing 3 types of sins. You said 2, maybe it is 2, but I think that
here he's describing 2. The next pasuk does bring up, according to some, the next pasuk brings up the Mazid. But let's get to the next pasuk.
Okay.
Did I finish with pasuk 13? Oh, no, I didn't finish with pasuk 13. 1 second. We'll get to pasuk 14. We'll get to it in a moment. The Medrash on this pasuk says something beautiful. The Medrash says that David HaMelech really knew how to ask for what he wants. We could learn a lot from David HaMelech. Even the truth is, our modern prayer book, our modern siddur, follows the way David HaMelech does it, right? What does David HaMelech do? David HaMelech first he praises Hashem, then he does a bissel tshuva, he atones for the sins, for his errors, and he asks for forgiveness, and he asks that the ones and the things that he doesn't even know about, those should be overlooked, and only then does he ask for what he wants, and that's the final pasuk. So think about a capital with 15 psukim, only in the 15th pasuk does he actually get to what he wants to say. Everything beforehand was paving the way. So that's the way the Medrash says over here, and we could learn in our when we need or we want something from Hashem, we could also learn from this. Pasuk number 14. So he's asking that even from me, your servant, help me out and save me, spare me from the Zaydim. So what is Zaydim? Most commentaries over here say that the Zaydim are talking about sins that were done on purpose. Zidoinos. Sins that were done on purpose. So what am I asking Hashem? Why does someone do a sin on purpose? Because the Yetzer Hara overcame me. Not because I wanted to do it. It's because the Yetzer Hara overcame me. Okay, it's still not an inadvertent sin because I knew and I still did it nonetheless. But still, it's the Yetzer Hara. So Gami Zaydim Chasei Chavdecha Al Yimshul, let them not have control over me. The Yetzer Hara shouldn't have control over me. And that's the idea of Zaydim coming from the word Zdainis. Rashi, Radak, and many other commentaries say that it's talking about the willful sins, that Hashem should help him, that he should overpower the Yetzer Hara, and that the Yetzer Hara and the willful sins shouldn't overpower him. The Sfarno over here comes and says that Zaydim is not talking about Zedainis, about sins. It's talking about evil people, bad people that are trying to pull David in a wrong way. So he's saying, even from the Zaydim, from those, and we have it in Tehillim more times, that it's this idea of Zaydim, of these people that try to pull David away from the straight and narrow, and that he's asking Hashem to help him. So it's not the only time that it's mentioned. So he's referring to the Rishaim that are bugging him, and he's asking Hashem that they shouldn't have dominion over him. And Oz Asam, and then I will be from Asam, from the word Tamim, I'll be strong, simple, complete, straight. That the Zaydim, whether it's the sins done knowingly, or the Yetzer Hara, or the evil people, the Rishayim, that they shouldn't have control over me, and I'll be able to do mitzvahs. Help me be a tamim, help me be simple and pure and complete. That way I should be able to do the mitzvahs. And what does he finally ask? He finally asks, may it be your will, that it should be your will, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart that are in front of you, right? That it should be l'ratzain. It should be for the real Ratzain. It should be for the real purpose. It should be for the real thing. And Hashem, you're my rock. You're my redeemer. So that's the final pasuk. As we mentioned, this pasuk is said at the end of Shemona Esrei. The Gemara in Brachos asks if the pasuk is asking that the words that I say and the meditations of my heart should be l'ratzain, should be, something of Hashem, that it should be pleasing for Hashem, meaning that Hashem should want it. If that's what the pasuk is saying, so the Gemara asks, why doesn't it say it in the beginning of Shemona Esrei? Yeah. Why does it say it at the end of Shemona Esrei?
That's what I was going to say. It says no, but even it says the opposite. At the beginning, it says, "Open my lips," like I don't even want to have control of what I say.
Yeah.
Just let my lips.
Right. Yeah, one second. Let's finish the idea. So the Gemara says, why does it, so if we're going to put it into the Shemona Esrei, why doesn't it say it in the beginning of Shemona Esrei? So the Gemara answers over there that since David HaMelech found it right that it should be at the end of a capital, but not just at the end of a capital, at the end of the 18th capital, according to some, if the first two capitals are together. Here it's the 19th capital, but we talked about this in the first or second class, how the first two capitals maybe are together. So it's at the end of the 18th capital, and he found it right to put it at the end of the 18th capital, Shemona Esrei, which is the 18 brachas. So therefore, it also should be at the end of the 18th bracha. So that's the first thing that we wanted to mention. The other thing that he's saying, that until now, he was asking for his actions to be right and his learning should be well, etc. What's he asking now is that his words should be proper. That's the way the Al-Shich learns it. But the basic idea is that his words should be accepted. And the Medrash over here says that David HaMelech is saying that he's asking Hashem, the words of my mouth. What's the words of David HaMelech's mouth? Tehillim. This is the words of his mouth. He's asking that it should be pleasing to Hashem, that it should become, the Medrash says, a part of Torah. That Tehillim should become part of Tanakh. This is where the request is. The words of my mouth, Tehillim, should become a part of Tanakh. And also he continues that the Tehillim should become part of Torah. And if someone reads Tehillim, the Medrash continues that the words of Tehillim should rectify the person, should rectify in every person the infections of his heart. That it should rectify a heart, it should elevate the heart, and that is what he's asking with you, saying that Tehillim should become a part of Torah, and that saying the words of Tehillim should affect the person and help and elevate the person. And with that, we finish Kapitel Yutes with the
Lily,
Lily, you wanted to ask something?